going to hear Lloyd Smith speaks this evening on humor, as we heard a little bit about. Humor is tricky. You probably recognize humor when you encounter it, but how much luck you have trying to explain to someone else why you think something's funny. The more you explain it, the less funny it becomes. E.B. White probably said it best: humor can be dissected as a frog can, but the thing dies in the process. And the innards are discouraging to all but the pure scientific mind. This evening, for the required project of level 3 of the Engaging Humor Path, Lloyd Smith assignment is to explain his point of view about humor and tell at least one story intended to entertain. Lloyd Smith and Dissecting the Frog.
Humor is really tricky. You know that if you ever tried to explain a joke that you thought was hilarious to somebody who didn't get it, and the more you talk, you know, they start looking at you kind of like her dog, you know, like what? You know, like you're the idiot, and you probably are, like trying to explain humor to people. I've done a lot of humor writing. I don't do stand-up comedy, but I do humorous speeches. I've won the district humorous speech contest 4 times, I finished second another time. And it's actually not that hard to do. Now, some kinds of humor are so obvious, like physical humor, for example. A good illustration of that, the last year I worked for Eastmont School District, I was the district assessment coordinator, standing in the hallway at Sterling Middle School with the vice principal, Jerry Tumlin, who I've known for decades. And a girl starts walking up to him. It's Mayor Steve Lacy's youngest daughter. And she says, "High five, Mr. Tumlin," sticks her hand up. Jerry sticks his hand up. Thing is, the girl was a klutz, and when she swung, she missed his hand and slapped him right in the face. And I almost fell down, you know, laughing. And every one of you would have done that too. I mean, that kind of thing, it's just obvious. The verbal kind of humor is less obvious. There are 2 key concepts you have to be able to manipulate in order to understand how humor works. One of them is juxtaposition, and the other one is verisimilitude. Okay, so everybody should understand right, what that means. Juxtaposition is when 2 things are in close proximity to each other, when they generally are not seen together. Does that make sense? You know, things you wouldn't expect to happen. Verisimilitude is the sense that something is real when a story is told. And here's an illustration. I'll tell you that the humorous story, and you'll see whether or not I'm the one who's an idiot for thinking it's humorous, or you for not thinking it's humorous. One day, during lunch, I didn't have time to eat. I was busy doing stuff in my classroom back when I was still in the classroom in Eastmont. And my classroom at that time had a scenic view of the student parking lot, one of the worst things to look at if you're a teacher. There are things that happen in student parking lots that you're just better off if you don't see. But anyway, I looked out the window, and here's a kid I had in class, Craig. I'm not going to tell you Craig's last name because he became a relatively successful businessman here in town. He probably wouldn't like this story if I did tell you his last name. Anyway, Craig's out there in the parking lot, and he's going like this. And I thought, what is that idiot doing? Now, the thing is, Craig had drifted his way through high school on a happy cloud of smoke. He was not a drug abuser, but he was definitely a drug user. I got along with him great, other people didn't. But anyway, he's out there kind of bouncing up and down like something weird is happening. And then I heard a car revving. And I looked to the way down at the other end of the parking lot. Here's another guy in an El Camino. And he's revving his motor. All of a sudden, he starts going toward Craig. And I'm thinking, is this guy so stoned he's going to stand and get run down by a car? And no, it was even worse. As the El Camino got to him, he jumped up into the air a magnificent 18 inches or so, and the El Camino hit him. As it hit him, he turned kind of like a high jumper turns, you know, Fosbury flop where they go over the bar backwards, which was a lucky thing or he would have been killed. But anyway, he goes up onto the hood of the car, up over the cab, down into the bed, and the tailgate was down, so he went out the back. And I looked at that, and I thought, this doesn't look too good, so I flipped on my intercom button, and I asked the secretary, you know, you better send Doug out, and Doug is the vice principal, out into the parking lot, because I don't think he's going to like what he finds there. But when Doug got out there, there wasn't anything there. The El Camino and the kid were both gone. And a couple hours later, Craig comes limping into my classroom, and he looks just like a guy who's been run down by an El Camino. You know, his clothes are all ripped up and dirty and everything, and I said, what the hell were you thinking? You know, and well, it turns out there was a show on TV at that time where people would call or write in or call in or whatever, and they would ask that stunts be performed. And one of the stunts was a stuntman who had the ability to jump up as a Ferrari went underneath him at about 80 miles an hour, which doesn't strike me as a wise thing to do. And Craig had decided to duplicate that stunt, except he didn't have the 80-mile-an-hour Ferrari. He had an El Camino that had to go over 3 or 4 speed bumps. And this kid was no athlete. He wasn't going to jump up above any car, let alone an El Camino, you know, that stands, what, about so tall, probably. And he thought he could do it. Okay, is that a funny story or not? You might want to go with funny?
Yeah.
Yeah, how about not funny? If you think about it, this is somebody who came this close to being killed in a car, by being run down by a car. That shouldn't be funny, right? But I laughed like a maniac when I watched it happening, and I laughed about it ever since. Now, what happened is the juxtaposition, okay, the two things. The thought of being run down by a car and the thought of doing that stupid stunt. Okay, they don't go together, but they happen together. You know, and that jarring clash of those two concepts is funny. The other thing I did was the verisimilitude. Verisimilitude is the sense that something is real. Have you ever listened to somebody trying to tell you a story and they put in way too many details? You know, exactly what everybody looked like and who said what to what. And it doesn't matter. They don't further the plot. In fact, if there are too many of them, it's the reverse. They slow the story down. On the other hand, if you've ever heard somebody not put enough detail in, you can't picture it, right? So you got to have just right, not too little and not too much. How do you judge that? I don't know. You just catch on sooner or later, I guess. There's no magic to that. But it's really important to do. I've always been so happy at contests when somebody starts a story and it's funny, but they're just troweling on the physical details because I know they're going to get tangled up, the audience isn't going to be able to understand it. On the other hand, you have to put in enough that it's real. And so that's what you have to do. Now those two things, the juxtaposition and the verisimilitude are the keys to writing humorous speeches. If you pay attention to the real world, there are a lot of really weird things happening. Now you can even find like newsletters that are little oddball stories of, you know, like a guy robbing a bank wearing a motorcycle helmet and his name is stenciled on it because he's a racer. You know, people write hold up notes on the back of their deposit slips and you know, try to rob banks. So it happens all the time, you know. And so that kind of thing is around. I used to tell my students they didn't need to take drugs. Real life is so weird that the drugs aren't going to make it any stranger. They don't. You know, in fact, they probably prevent you from enjoying the humor that you're seeing. I'll wrap up. I'm thinking here, you know, I have an internal where am I at here? You didn't even start the watch.
Yeah.
No, it's running.
Yeah, right. Okay.
You're about 9
part of
minutes
the
here
humorous
with the
part.
intro.
Good help anywhere. Well, in conclusion, since the timer screwed up and I just had to keep talking because usually I'm better at times. Anyway, Mr. Person.
I guess the joke was on you.
Yeah, so,